KBYPs in the hand shack after going to Hobby Lobby to get beading pliers, BEADING, and tackling the question of how to get this HP 8660 apart. This is the bottom. Control units removed, obviously. These two boards here come out by loosening a couple of screws back in there on slots. Slide this and the boards up, disengage the boards from down here, tilt that, and then remove each board. And always be careful not to damage or twist any of these cables or these RF plugs. When we see an assembly like this, there are obviously shield plates with screws. We can just take the plates off and get inside. Not a big deal. On the other side of this unit is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12 boards. I'm real sure that take those covers off and there are edge card connector boards inside, like in the control head. But I haven't looked in there yet. What I really don't want to do is pull those boards out and push them back in without being able to support the backplane board. That's just begging for a broken solder connection. Well, this thing's in there like a tank. I don't know how that unit comes out. And I'm not sure I want to find out. So if I can get at it from the end in that way, like I did the control head, and just go in each one at a time, just pry boards out, that takes care of getting them out. But I need to be able to support the back side of that backplane board with my hand that's grounded. I'm listening to the lid fest on 40 meters in the background. But I need to be able to be grounded and have an anti-static bag in hand and support that backplane board with my hand to reinstall those edge card boards, because there's no insertion and no eject mechanism on them. So no way to put them back in except force them. So that means getting at the back side of that board, but I can only see the end of that assembly. Down here, 1, 2, the first 3 boards that way, and there's a board down inside there. This unit's in the way, and we see disturbing things like 500 megahertz and all these coaxial connectors with old coax cables. There's a captive screw up here, and this assembly is on a hinge, and I really didn't want to fold that down and torque on this cable here and that cable there. They're old, they're formed in place, the plastics are hardened. So I thought, well, I'll just do it incrementally. I'll loosen the captive screw, I'll move the assembly a little bit, let it go free, and I thought maybe I'd put a heating pad under it, heat these cables up and soften them a bit. Well, it turns out after doing this and seeing it moves very freely, all I did was just rotate this down, and it's making a minimal movement on the cables. So this is tipped down, and on top here we have UHF. This is the time to get worried. I took one of the covers off one of these boards, and that is phase detector A4A7. And here is the frightening revelation. Way down here, a bunch of big metal can capacitors. These are fairly easy to get to, pretty good size. But see the little tantalum right there in the center? And see the little tantalum, 3 of them, right in there. See that coax jumper? That's 500 megahertz, that's UHF. Do not get in an assembly like this and start moving things around. If you look at the 4th video in this series, we had some clown come in making a comment as a troll, telling me I didn't know what I was doing and I should just go in and cut those capacitor bodies out and solder a new one in. Well, that didn't work 30 years ago, it doesn't work now. I tried it. Yes, it's possible. Yes, there's less soldering heat, but it causes a real problem in trying to attach a new component and crimp the new leads to these old leads where the capacitor's gone, because the leads are flimsy, nothing to support them. That's one thing. That's just messing around with a low frequency assembly and an LS populated digital board and a microcomputer circuit. Fairly trivial stuff. Woe to anyone who is stupid enough to fall for advice like that, to go in this UHF assembly and start moving big metal things around with who knows what frequencies on what points, and who knows what stray capacitance, what stray electrostatic fields are between the big metal bodies of those capacitors and those transistor collectors, for example. Woe to you if the original procedure was to assemble this board with those big cans on it, put it in, and those cans have an effect on the tuning on that collector. Because you take that can out, you may screw yourself royally. When frequencies get much up above 30, 40, 50 megahertz, you got to start being real careful about layout and lead dress. You do not go in there and change the routing of that wire. I saw one of these manuals. I don't think it was this unit. I think it was on a Tektronix scope, but it said that an alignment step is taking a wire like that and bending it. Only a fool would go in there and start ripping these big metal cans out without being very sure of why and how to put them back if it's suddenly, after this is all done, find out that this can't be aligned or it doesn't work at all. So, caveat emptor, be very careful who you take advice from. We've got a bunch of uneducated hobbyists, uneducated hams online. They think they know it all. They're forum trolls. They go around giving advice. They're talking out their asses. Playing games at low frequency is one thing. Don't play around at 500 megahertz. They can come back and bite you. This is high-end test equipment. This unit was what, 20 or 25,000 bucks new. The best engineering on the face of the earth in here. Not something for armchair experts with an undeserved ham license to comment on. You see, this ain't ham radio here. This is, see that? Hewlett-Packard. Be extremely careful what you touch in here. You see that dipped capacitor? Don't you dare bend that. Because you see the two coils right beside it? Has to be high frequency for two turns like that to make any difference. And I'll guarantee there's field coupling between those coils and that capacitor. So you're going to start nicking with stuff like this, you had better know what you're doing, or don't mess with it. So I found this tonight. I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to sleep on it before I go any further, because I know what can go wrong if I do something wrong and how incredibly hard it could be to sort it out. So that's part 6. Did it.